Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, sister. How are you?
Alhamdulillah wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'm good. I'm alhamdulillah. Glad to be able to join you today, mashallah.
Alhamdulillah. Jazakallah khair for doing this interview for us. I'm really, really happy that you've agreed to do this for us. I feel privileged to be able to have this interview from you, alhamdulillah. So I'm just going to ask you a few questions about the niqab. The first question, did you find it easy wearing niqab? And if so, why or why not?
Well, bismillah wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah. I've been wearing niqab now for coming on 20 years, alhamdulillah. And I started wearing niqab, back before it was a political thing, before kind of governments had started weighing in on, whether it was right or wrong. And I was in East London as well, so it wasn't an anomaly. And I was working in an office where there were a lot of Muslim students. It was Newham College. And, when I just decided to start covering my face, everyone was like, oh, that's different. But it's like, okay, cool. And I just immediately felt an affinity with it. And I just felt really comfortable with it on. And pretty much, I've just kind of worn it since then. And it was for me, as I said it, in my book, it was something that I felt that I could do that was extra, and that was out of devotion to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, really to say thank you for all the blessings that I had had since becoming a Muslim and from before that. And alhamdulillah, it's been an act of worship that I've been able to maintain for the past 20 years and live a very full life at the same time. So I'm grateful to Allah for that.
Alhamdulillah. So have you ever faced any kind of abuse for wearing it?
Abuse is an interesting word. I think my brain filters out staring because I think it's normal for people to stare, especially when you go to places where they are not used to seeing women in niqab, and of which there are many. There are many places like that where they don't see women in niqab. So for people to stare at me, I don't see that as abusive. I don't see it as intrusive in any way. It doesn't faze me because I expect that kind of reaction. And I had that reaction in Newcastle just when I was there the other week, just because it's unusual and it's strange. And of course, because the media has built up so much meaning to the niqab, for the general public, and has invested it with so much, so many stereotypes. So I expect people to stare. So staring for me is no big deal. Stare all you like, or whatever. In terms of abuse, I probably have been, had been heckled by some, youngsters at some point. I do remember one time in Madrid, where I was coming out of the bathroom, and a woman caught sight of me, and she almost like shuddered and just had this look of revulsion on her face before sort of turning away from me and strutting out of the bathroom. But like low level stuff, I'm fortunate it's been low level stuff. And I always come to those with compassion, because alhamdulillah, I've never been discriminated against because of my niqab, not been allowed to do anything, not been allowed to enter a restaurant or to do a certain activity, even when I went horse riding. When I went up here where I'm in Yorkshire, I said to the guys, that I really would like to ride. Can I book a session? And they were like, we think the horses are going to be scared.
Wow, really?
I was like, I ride horses in Egypt all the time. So they were like, maybe the horses in Egypt are used to that.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, whatever, put me on that horse. So it was so stuff like that, just ignorance at the end of the day. And I think over the years, I've just developed such an armor, where my stance is, this is me. And I'm going to be me and own me, and just, that's it. That's what you see is what you get. And if you like it, great. If you don't like it, great. It's on you. It's not my business. You know what I mean? It's got nothing to do with me. Don't infringe my rights. Don't get into my space. But if you don't like it, makes you feel uncomfortable, at the end of the day, I know that I am actually more personable and friendly than majority of people that they will meet who don't cover their faces, because I do make an extra effort, because I'm wearing the niqab, to be personable and to make that human connection. So if you're not open to that because you can't see my face, that's your problem. That's how I see it.
Do you feel that obviously you're a black sister, you're African, right? So
yeah.
Do you feel that obviously you've been wearing niqab for like 20 years now, but do you feel like being black, that kind of attitude has been developed from being black? Like maybe because obviously sometimes, as for me, being black, having experiences growing up, I did experience racism. And, in order to, just get on with your life, you kind of build up a resilience towards negativity.
That's a really, really interesting question, actually. I've never thought of that. I think definitely, my cultural background and my personality mean that I, quote unquote, wear niqab differently, if that makes sense. If you were to, to see me on the street and you were to see maybe another sister from a different background wearing niqab, the way that we walk, the way that we carry ourselves, the way that we relate to people might be very, very different. And yeah, you're right. It could be due to that, but definitely it's a case of, well, this is who I am, and I'm not going to apologize for it. I don't need to apologize for it. So yeah, you're right. It could be related to the fact that, as women of color, as Black women, as African women, you are sometimes maybe made to feel like you need to apologize for, not even so much your appearance, but your voice, or your energy. You know what I mean? And kind of made to feel a way about the fact that you're not like everybody else, and that you have this energy and you have this voice or this accent or this way of talking or this way of expressing yourself. And it's interesting that you say that, because I feel so much. And subhanallah, like when I was growing up, I was one of the only mixed race kids in my school, and there were white kids and there were Black kids, and then there were like a handful of mixed race kids. And I remember now, when I think back on it, just feeling so odd and just feeling like I didn't belong. Like I didn't belong with the white girls. And I knew that, because I not only did not look like them, but their family dynamic was different.
Exactly.
Their mums made brownies and they went to brownies. And I didn't even know what brownies were. Not the food or the club, So that was them. And then there were the Black girls, and the Black girls were Shona girls. They were from Zimbabwe, so they spoke the language. Their families were very traditional Shona families, and I wasn't that either, because my parents are from South Africa. I couldn't speak Shona, and I didn't have a family structure like theirs. And so I just remember just feeling just very odd for a long time, and really just not knowing my place. And it's funny now, over almost 40 years later, just feeling like I know my place now. And it encompasses everything, the intersectionality of everything, of being a woman of color, being a woman of African descent, which is so important to me, being a woman who represents in niqab, being an author, being a speaker, being a mother, and just the intersection of all of that. I just feel so grounded in that now, and I feel it's a blessing. And subhanallah, I know this is kind of off topic, but when I was in Newcastle, I was there for, there's a book that's been produced that showcases writers and illustrators of color in the UK. And I'm in the book. And so they've arranged, events for the authors and the illustrators to go around and meet kind of stakeholders, people, librarians, booksellers, stuff like that, people like that. Largely white audience, okay, because the publishing industry is extremely white. So that's why they put this book together, to introduce these people to a more diverse range of authors and illustrators. So anyway, I'm at this event and I read from Far From Home. I don't know whether any of your listeners have read Far From Home or Boy vs. Girl, but I read from Boy vs. Girl first, which is set in Bradford. So I got to like flex my Bradford accent, which is a bit trash, but anyway. And then I read from Far From Home. And there I was able to use my Zimbabwean accent and my Rhodesian accent. And I read it how I normally read, a lot of power and drama and everything. And subhanAllah, I was there in my full niqab, full black, like, no apologies. And afterwards, so many people came up to me and said, you were so powerful on stage, like we couldn't even look away. So one of the women said, I could hardly breathe while you were speaking. And Dylan, one of the organizers, he said, whatever you may think about how people respond to you in your niqab, know this, you have power because of the way that you present, because because people don't expect it, and because you are a powerful woman. Your niqab doesn't take away from that. So anyway, that's a little story.
But mashallah, I think it's an important point. you know, mashallah, it's just amazing, because the reality is, like, the niqab is just a piece of cloth, you know.
Yeah.
So I was going to ask you, do you think that it's a barrier? But I mean, obviously not in your life.
You know what? It is that you say that the niqab is just a piece of cloth. It is what you make it.
Exactly.
I believe that it really is what you make it.
Mhm.
If you wear your niqab to hide from the world, alhamdulillah,
Yeah.
then you will, you know. If you wear your niqab to remind you of certain etiquette, or, you know, certain a way that you want to be, then that's what it will be. If you wear niqab to keep people out, it will perform that function. If you wear the niqab, you know, to as an act of worship, but something that you do not allow to get in the way of what it is that you want to achieve or whatever, then it will do that too. So it's quite a, what's the word I'm looking for, versatile.
Versatile,
It's
yeah.
quite a versatile piece of cloth, and it really, I think a lot of it depends on the intent of the wearer, and also, yeah, and what the wearer is trying to achieve with it. And I think that it can perform all of that. I mean, I've been to schools. I've always worn my niqab through my work. Always. I've been to schools. I've worked with Key Stage 1 kids. I've worked with teenagers. I went to a Catholic school once. I worked with them. I worked with, you know, there's a boys' school that I go to, the lovely boys in Kent. I think they're also a Catholic school. And, you know, they invite me to come because they love my book, and I work with them, and they're cool with it, you know. And it's like, it's not even a thing. I think it's just something that is able to open their eyes, and just give them a different perception of something that they may have a negative perception of, or just plain ignorance of.
SubhanAllah. I think, you know, you've just squashed the theories and the views of so many people. I think, because especially when you hear people saying that, oh, you know, Muslims don't integrate into society as well. You know, the niqab is something that they try to, you know, put across as this is what's stopping Muslims from integrating into society. And, you know, people look at you, you've got your face covered, or even if you don't, maybe you've just got a hijab on, then they think you can't
Yeah,
speak English or something like that.
yeah.
Yeah.
The thing is that the integration question is very interesting. Hijab and niqab are not the things that stop us integrating if we don't integrate. Okay,
Exactly.
those are not the things. Those are, even if you want to call them just symptoms,
Yeah.
there are lots of other reasons why Muslim women may not integrate. And for example, I went to Newcastle for this event, and I was fasting,
Yeah.
and everybody else went out for dinner afterwards, as to be expected, right? And so I couldn't go because it was like ages until the fast was going to be open, and I was tired. So I was like, you know what, you guys go. And they asked me about alcohol. And I said, look, you guys go and do what you need to do, okay? Because they said, you know, are you okay eating in a place that serves alcohol? And I said, you know what, guys, I'm not going to eat anyway, so you guys do what you need to do and whatever. Now, somebody could say that, oh, see there, she's not integrating. But that had nothing to do with my niqab. That had to do with other things. You see what I'm saying? So if there is a culture of you know, for example, very close interaction between men and women, you know, sort of, you know, alcohol, partying, you know, presenting yourself in a particular way, you know, for example, in advertising or in entertainment and places like that, then yeah, you are probably going to find that a lot of Muslims are not going to integrate into that culture, because it goes against our values. It's got nothing to do with the hijab. It's got nothing to do with the niqab. There are other things that are way more important. You know, like bankers, for example, or people in the city. Okay, so there are a lot of Muslims who would stay away from those roles because of the interest and stuff like that. So that's a fundamental thing. That is a fundamental reason why you won't find Muslims in droves going into those industries. But also the office culture is something that is off-putting as well.
Yes,
you know, whether it's a high drinking, high drugs, you know, high, having women and all that kind of thing, you know, partying hard and all of that kind of thing. Yeah, you're going to find Muslims are not going to go for that. Well, there will be some who do, but Muslims who hold their religion, you know, closely to them, they're not going to integrate. So it's got nothing to do with what we wear. It's not even got to do with that guy's beard. It's the fact that he doesn't want to go to the pub every night after work. So, you know, so I think the debate, it's easy to say it's the hijab or the niqab that stops you integrating. But it's not that. It's what environment are you inviting us to integrate into?
Yeah.
And is that environment actually, you know, something that we can align ourselves with? Not because of our hijab or niqab, but because just generally, am I cool with this as a Muslim? Is this something that I want to be involved in? Is this something that I want to live? You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, okay, so you've mentioned obviously you do travel around the world, and you know you're an author and speaker, so you work with your niqab all the time. Um, how was it like when you are traveling? The practical sides of it. How does that usually work when you're wearing your niqab and identification and stuff like that? Have you
I
had any
just lift it. I
issues?
just lift it. I just lift it.
Yeah,
I'm not there to cause problems, I'll be honest. I know some people will say, can I have a female? But with the worldwide climate now, I'm not there to cause problems or to bring attention to myself for any reason.
exactly. Yeah.
So I just flip it up. You identify me and I flip it down and I just keep it moving. Yeah.
That's it, yeah. And I feel the same, to be honest. 'Cause I mean, when I'm traveling, I usually have my brother with me,
Yeah.
and you know, I've mentioned before, he's not the type to like want to hang around to do anything. So it's like he just wants to get in and out as quickly as possible. So that's the last thing that I want to get done. You know, just literally, I don't want anybody to. And the thing is, when you're traveling, I find that airports are so busy, anyways. Nobody's looking at you then because everybody's just in their own things. You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's quicker if you just do that and then just get along.
Yeah.
So do you feel that sisters that wear niqab get treated differently from sisters that don't?
By whom?
By Muslims and by non-Muslims. So two different groups basically. Like what's your experience? What's your take on that?
That's a really interesting question. I'm not sure whether I know. And you know, like even to say sort of by Muslims, are they treated differently? I don't know. I can't say yes they are or no they're not. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I have no idea. Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm stumped.
Well, I asked this question to a few sisters, and really everyone's had different like responses, obviously. But one of the sisters that I interviewed, she's I think she's Polish, and she wears the niqab, alhamdulillah. And basically, like she's married into like a Pakistani family, and they actually, she said some of the family have told her like if she wants to wear the niqab, she should go and live in Pakistan. So I thought
Wow.
I thought
I
that was
think
really fun.
definitely there is, you know, for some people who feel like, you know what, this niqab is like more trouble than it's worth,
Yeah,
and you are bringing trouble, bringing attention to us as Muslims, or you know, calling negative attention to us. You know, usually every time that there is a niqabi in the news, it is something. It's something negative. So I'm sure there are some Muslims who feel like, you know, these sisters who insist on wearing niqab, maybe they just shouldn't be in Britain.
yeah.
You know, if it's going to be such a big deal, then maybe they should move to a Muslim country and do that. So maybe there are some, but I'm sure that, you know, they have a particular view on the UK and on politics in general, and you know, and they are maybe wanting us to quote unquote integrate more, or to sort of, you know, just not stand out as much.
Yeah.
But again, I think it is a case of, you know, I still feel that women who wear niqab are in the shadows, and again, some choose that. That is what they want, and that's why they wore the niqab in the first place.
Yeah.
They did not want to be seen. So fair enough, but it also means that it's difficult to combat stereotypes, because
Definitely.
there's just not enough representation. So and to be fair, when I see a niqabi on some kind of sketch or anything like that, like there's one on BBC, I think it's BBC Three now, I'm just like, no, I just don't want that. That's not the representation that I want, because I know it's just going to be a load of rubbish.
Yeah.
And you know, just, you know, making fun for no reason. So maybe less representation is okay. I don't know.
Okay, so do you feel have you like in your 20 years of wearing niqab, okay, or even like before that, have you ever met somebody who was wearing niqab by force?
I would say the only quote unquote by force is when it's actually the husband's choice, if I'm going to be 100% honest. It's the husband's preference, and it's something she may not actually have chosen for herself. Like if she had a choice, she wouldn't.
Yeah.
But she's decided to honor her husband's preference, and has worn the niqab. Yeah. Or some people grow up in families where the women wear niqab, period.
Yeah.
Like, there's no conversation about it. It's just this is what we do. So for them, they may not even have had the concept of choice. It's just like, this is what we do. So
It's just a traditional thing, a cultural.
Yeah.
Okay, mashallah. I've got a little tweet here. Like I've read this out the other week. Somebody had wrote on Twitter. Niqabs are so unnecessary. Like, why wear it? Most women don't even choose it. It's forced. Imagine covering your face your entire life and basically having no identity. Sad. What's your
Wow.
response to that?
Wow. Well, it's a very, very ignorant statement. And I'm sure the person who read it doesn't know niqabis. Firstly, when you wear niqab, you're not wearing the niqab your whole life, every day, all the times. That's the first thing. And secondly, just because you're wearing a niqab does not mean that you do not have an identity. Because that person is assuming that the fact that you have your face on show means that you have an identity.
Exactly, yeah.
That's not the definition of an identity. And even if you do a lineup of 20 niqabis, we don't look the same. You know, even we could be wearing the same type of niqab, we do not look the same. And anyway, my identity is not defined by the fact that you can see my face or not see my face. And I think I'm a living proof of that, because like, at the end of the day, you don't think it's necessary, that's your business, you know, and that's your perspective on it. But to say that, you know, this is what this sad life of, you know, covering your face for the rest of your life and that you have no identity, it's just a very ignorant statement, and it's so far from the truth. And I feel I laugh because I just think, you know, all all that work that the sisters who wear niqab do, whether it's in their families or in their communities or in their businesses, you know, those niqabis who are out there on their motorbikes, those sisters who are out there skiing, those sisters who are out there in, you know, in the sea, or riding horses, or, you know, building soup kitchens, I don't know, whatever they're doing, just because their face is covered, they don't have an identity, they don't have a life. That's sad.
It's ridiculous, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's like pushing us out onto the fringes, basically. I think, I mean, I would say, do you think that, obviously, like with feminism and things like that, do you think, you know, obviously before, women have been like, you know, subjected to like not being able to do certain things, do you think that that's been put on the niqabi sisters now, or Muslim sisters now? Do you think like that those kind of perceptions, like, oh yeah, you can't do this because you're a woman or whatever, do you think that's kind of moved across to us?
I think we have okay, Islamically there are rules for men and for women, okay, for believers. So we know that already. There's certain things that men can't do and certain things that women can't do, okay? So that we know already from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But our cultures have also built on that, so that women's behavior is monitored, is politicized, is kind of, you know, needs to be controlled. So, you know, within our communities, it's not that it's moved over to us, it's just that within our communities there's a lot of growth that needs to take place. I think there's a lot of like learning and unlearning that needs to take place about a woman's role. I mean, I don't know whether you remember when I posted on Instagram that meme, that kind of meme, which was talking about, you know, the amazing Muslim woman and how she's so sacrificial that she starts
I remember that.
Giving her younger brother her chocolate when she's 7 years old. Then when she's old enough, she, you know, she gives up her own choice to marry the man of her parents' choice. And then her in-laws, you know, she gives up her desires and her dreams and her ambitions so that her in-laws will be pleased with her, and all of this trash, basically. That is the problem in Muslim communities, because as I said in my Instagram post, the hundreds of mashalahs that followed that particular post, Nabi Muslim, it just showed me that you guys have got issues, because you really, really do think that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created the Muslim woman to serve everyone and to be selfless and to basically never be happy except when she's serving people. And the Quran doesn't say that, the Seerah doesn't show us that at all. And I just think that those types of attitudes are the attitudes that make young girls say, this is not what I want. Like, this is, I don't want this. I want to live a life. I want to be happy. I want to, you know, to fulfill my potential. You know what I'm saying? And so those types of kind of backward ideas, especially when they're translated into memes and stuff for the next generation, and people are like giving them the thumbs up and saying, mashallah, this is so beautiful. I was just like, no, this is like, this has to stop. And anyway, alhamdulillah, it created a really interesting debate and a conversation. But you can see in those types of conversations the divide between Muslims who don't see any problem with that, women and men. Yeah, it's not just the guys who were saying mashallah, it was girls who were like, mashallah, yes, this is why Allah's honored us and all of this stuff, right? And then there were the others who were like, this is a load of trash. Like, this has got nothing to do with Islam. This is just some cultural BS, basically.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think those are issues. And we have a lot of things that we need to heal in our community, and that's one of them.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's a big problem, to be honest. I mean, I remember responding on that, and I think that's one of the root causes of a lot of our problems, basically.
Yeah.
Because on so many levels, I think it's something I'd probably like to talk about more in future. But just in the community generally, I do meet a lot of sisters who have like issues because of that. You know, they get to a certain age and they're just living with depression, and like nobody really cares.
Yeah.
You know?
It's you know what it's like? It's like you as a woman, as a human being, you don't have any intrinsic worth.
Yeah.
You're not worth anything unless you are a dutiful daughter, a sacrificial sister, or a dutiful wife for somebody, and a mother. And that's it. And it doesn't matter. And I'm just finishing up my next book, actually. And this is one of the things that I'm writing about in these last 10 days, bi'idhnillah. And, you know, the whole thing of you having worth intrinsically, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created you, because you are his creation, because you are a believer, and you being enough just because of that. People don't understand that. You have to, as a woman, you have to justify your existence by how much you're serving other people, preferably other men. Okay, you know, if you are a daughter in the family, you need to perform in order to be considered valuable. So you perform in school, you perform by following the rules, you perform by upholding the family honor and all that stuff. If you don't perform in that way, then you know it doesn't. Your existence is not worth anything, and B, it doesn't matter how happy or fulfilled you are as long as you're performing.
Yeah.
And when you get married, it's the same thing. And when you have children, it's the same thing. No one cares about your well-being at all, or whether you're happy with this man, or whether you are bonding with your children, or whether you feel fulfilled as a mother. No one cares as long as you're performing.
Yeah, exactly.
If you stop performing, that's when people have got something to say. That's when people want to step in. That's when people have got the blah, 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 blah behind your back and all that stuff. When you stop performing. But up until that point, as long as you're performing, no one's got a problem. Even you could have depression, you could be suicidal, you could be anything, but no one cares as long as you're performing. But now when you leave the house because he was beating you, now it's like, no, now it's a problem. And that stuff really, really gets to me, because women themselves, we as women in general, we do struggle with feelings of low self-worth anyway, and that's across the board. But in the Muslim community, that is, I feel, in many of our cultures, that is reinforced, because the family really does not value you unless you're performing.
Yeah.
Give us something. Give us some accolades. Give us some honor. Give us some, you know, like, show us what you're worth. Show us what you're made of. Like, we want to see, you know, like, what are you worth around here? You know, whether it's grades in school, whether it's going to do, I don't know, engineering or pharmacy at university, whether it's, you know, making sure that your hijab is on correctly, or making sure you don't talk to boys, or making sure that all of this stuff, no one cares about. And that is why that the mental health of our young girls is so delicate and fragile right now. Because all they're asked to do is to perform like a good Muslim girl, look like a good Muslim girl, show to us that you are praying and that you are devout and that you are pious and that you are chaste. Just show us that, and that's fine. That's all we need from you. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
as for what's actually happening underneath, whether she's happy, whether she's depressed, whether she's, like I said, suicidal, whether she's cutting herself, okay, whether she's got a secret boyfriend, whether she's got like a secret identity on Instagram, all that stuff is like hush, 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 hush. We're not going to talk about that as long as you're performing.
Yeah.
And I just think that is so toxic, and is the reason why a lot of our girls are struggling with their mental health, because they know that I don't have a choice but to perform. If I don't perform, my parents will not love me anymore. They will not accept me. If I'm struggling with this, or I'm having difficulty with that, or whatever it is, I know I can't talk to them about it. If I want to go to university or college, like where we are, there are a lot of girls who, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how well they're doing their GCSEs. They're not going to know A-level. Their parents are like, no, you're wearing niqab now, and we just want to get you into Alama course and get you married. That's what we need to do right now.
SubhanAllah.
And they know that. So when they're depressed and they don't have any energy or any desire to push themselves academically, which of course their teachers want them to do, because they say, look, you can do anything, you've got the potential, you could be getting 9s and all that stuff. In their head, they're thinking, what's the point?
Exactly.
I already know what my dad's got planned for me. I already know what my mom's going to say. What's the point? And so then they fall into this depression because they look at their life and they see they have no agency, they have no choice. All they can do is perform in order to guarantee that their parents will still keep them as their daughter and, you know, love them and all of that kind of thing. I think it's so sad. I think it's so sad.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of problems in the society. Gosh.
InshaAllah, one at a time.
One at a time, yeah, definitely. But it starts with the family at the end of the day. I think that's the main thing. And there's a lot of issues within the families, and it's just like you said, it's related to that cultural and different cultures. All the cultures have problems.
Yeah.
You know, so many levels, subhanAllah. So yeah, Jazakallah khair. I think that's we've very well covered everything. Thank